Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Got my buddy Kairos is in the background. Be joining us shortly. It's been a while since it's been on here. Thanks for everybody coming, and we're gonna dig deep into the Palace of Fine Arts and recent boots on the ground from Kairos. Should be interesting. So we'll be right back. It's not the right one. Where do we want to go here? So you there, Kairos?
I am right here.
All right.
Hello. Hello once again.
Let me get my stuff situated here. I don't know what's going on. How you doing, man?
I'm doing very well. Just got back from an exciting weekend in San Francisco. Been keeping busy with work again, but enjoying the explorers and also looking at a lot of the other research channels, trying to keep up. Having a great time, but as you know, the Palace of Fine Arts has been a place that I've visited many times.
Yes, we've done I think a couple of live shows. It's been a while, about almost 6 months since I've been on here for a live. But yeah, I've done a couple of shows with that. I think this is our 7th live together. Almost 3 years, I think. Man, yeah,
Been a good time. So we've explored some of the fortresses, and we've explored the narrative of the Palace of Fine Arts, and we'll touch on it a little bit tonight. But just got back and was able to capture some very good footage. I'm preparing a more detailed video walkthrough and explore, and some very fine zoom footage from inside the Rotunda. But I also took a bunch of still photos, and I would like to review a lot of the historical photos we have available, as well as maybe spend a minute with some of the maps that are provided.
yeah. You have to excuse me. I was trying to find that one. It's not it. I don't know. There it is.
Here we are.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, perfectly fine. So I wanted to get right into the material. I have a large number of photos, and as always, feel free to interrupt and offer your opinion as always. Some in the chat might have some questions about what the details might represent, or they might see something that maybe we overlooked. But we're going to be able to zoom in and see the details in the large reliefs, the urns, the capital column detail. There's a lot of pieces that are missing right now, and the main exhibition hall, which is the arched feature, we're going to find that a lot of the features have been removed. That's very likely what happened in 1963 when they've made the claim that they've torn down the entire building. So it looks more like they tore off a lot of the features off the larger exhibition structure, the roof and statuary. So I'd like to show all that. Let me get right into the imagery, and we'll be able to go through that together. I think you'll find it. I think you'll find it enjoyable. Let's see if I can make that a little bit bigger. So this is one of the historical paintings, and you'll notice that the detail that's in the painting is very accurate with what we see on the building. So I'd like to point out some of the very simple features. We have the reliefs, and there's 3 different styles of reliefs. One of them repeats 4 times, and the other 2 repeat 2 times. Here's the upper urns. Each one has 4 griffins on it and the difficult to read Latin. There's also the large titans. There's the lion heads. There's the 32 lower urns. And then this picture here, which is representative of some of the oldest photos, actually includes what's called the altar. And this is no longer present. This instead is a round concrete slab with names of contributors with some of the remodeling, or in this case, we're going to find demolition. Let me make sure I didn't skip one. Okay, so this is one of the photos that's on the grounds on their information plaque, just showing the true grandeur of this place. So we're noticing that all the buildings have amazing detail, large columns, urns, various spires, metal with glass domes. So we see the orbs, all kinds of things. This again is on the information placard. In this particular photo, which would have been possibly shortly after the fair, you can see how it's already very overgrown and the lagoon is missing quite a bit of water. But we're going to notice the orientation of this one specific relief. So this is the one that has Pegasus and a lion and a harp player. And from the inland side of the property, even in the modern day, it is oriented correctly. So far, I'm finding the only variation in the photography is going to be things that are missing, but not things that are different. So here again on the placard, we're being told that they were using mules to dredge out the swampland, not only for this location, but for the entire 635 acres. That was part of maybe a large part of the way that they were doing construction. So a modern day photo shows that this neighborhood here, which is the Marina District, all of these buildings all the way to Fort Mason on the hill were all fairgrounds. So this has all been changed, all removed, but this is the last remaining structure. So we find that that is also a carryover theme to a lot of the World Fair stories we encounter, that we'll have all the glorious pictures, and then there's a carryover structure or two, which were maybe the only ones that were not supposedly temporary somehow. So this photo from across the lagoon looking back into the space, you can really get a sense of how large the structure is. So here's some adults walking around. You can see the size of the urns,
yeah,
the placement, and then the detail as you rise up continues. So each one of these column capitals that are in the center pair of eights all have exactly the same detail in the mold. And so we're going to find repeating patterns, repeating numbers. It's all multiples of 8 for the most part. This is an octagonal structure. So every opening, there's 3 lions. So there's going to be 24 lions. And the urns. So here we see the same relief that I had shown from the earlier representation. So this is a similar vantage point looking across the lagoon. So it is in the same orientation. So the story that we're going to hear is that they rebuilt the entire structure exactly as it was built originally for the 1915 World Exposition. So we're going to be looking and comparing what it looks like today and what it looked like in the earlier photos. It's supposed to be an exact replica in every possible way. We're going to be thinking about the intricate mold making that would have been involved to produce the concrete relief and detail. So here is a colorized photo, which is very accurate from a lot of the pictures. A lot of it looks that it may be, it may include pencil drawing over an older black and white. But here is the Palace of Fine Arts at the end and outside of this walled city, which runs the entire length of the marina. So in modern day, this is still a marina, but we're able to see the brick masonry, which makes up the seawall. And we'll be able to see a little bit of that. But so the Palace of Fine Arts was actually, in comparison to the overall acreage, it was kind of a lesser component outside of, but also maybe containing some of the most glorious artwork. So said to have marble and bronze and various fabrics, statuary. So here's another one of the famous photos, said to be prior to opening of the fair. So we see that Alcatraz is here and very different looking than it would look now. Then we see domes that are much larger than the palace and buildings which are very huge. This is supposed to be the iron scaffolding for the Palace of Jewels prior to construction, but it's hard to tell that that's, everything else is almost built. So you'd think that that would, they'd be ahead of, a little further ahead along.
The amount of domes is just crazy too. There are domes everywhere.
And this one here, which has a real shine to it and a hot spot, very shiny, possibly metal of some sort. We really don't know what they were using. And this is very dark and lacking detail, where the other structures, for some reason, are much easier to distinguish. I don't know how this anomaly has occurred. Everything else light, but that's fine. Here's another older photo to really show the size and scope and the detail of what they were doing and what was done. So we're going to examine each of these pieces individually, each of the components individually, and then talk about some of the troubles that it might have construction wise. Now here's an image that I captured from Google, and I added these little dots just to kind of show you what we're going to be exploring. So on top of the column structures are these clusters, and each one of these dots represents what's being called Weeping Woman statue. So there's a series, each one of them has a woman in a gown with a very stylized hair and jewelry and looking down in. So here's a grouping of 7 and a grouping of 7, 6, 6, and then it's 4, 4, and 4 on both sides. Both sides. Each one of these women are truly identical in their appearance. So we might wonder, how many molds did they have? and what was the design showing us. So there's currently 76 available to see, but as we look to the historical photos, there's actually 24 that have been removed for a total of 100 weeping women. So a very important detail that many just look at as an artistic component. The yellow ones are the griffin urns that are at the very highest point, that most of the detail is absolutely impossible to recognize with the naked eye standing from. They're about 150 feet off the ground. Then
Wow.
the red dots are the lower urns, and there's 32 of those, and they're quite large, and they have angels and cherubs and various activities. There were quite a few other urns that I'm seeing in the historical photos, but I'm not able to make a real accurate placement. This is a so-called floor plan, giving the just kind of a layout of what they were doing. So these are the exhibition areas where various countries were showing amazing artwork and techniques and fabrics and stone and marble and all kinds of amazing things, where we know that the other buildings that were on the grounds, which we're going to touch on briefly, had a lot of other things, where this was for arts. So we see they had these palaces where they were showing the general population amazing new things, amazing new technologies, and we see it goes on extensively. But this is called the Pan-Pacific International Exhibition, and it was for this Panama Canal. So when you're looking at the various exhibits, that's really a small portion, where all of this is something else, where this is supposed to be what they were doing. And then you have to really look hard, and then you see that is where they had the incubator. So that, and then they had this creation exhibit. This was the area they called the zone, and maybe you've seen some of the pictures of what was there. That looked temporary, very corny looking, very traveling carnival like. That looks like something they would tear down. So this is the current location of the Presidio grounds, which is now available for touring and looking. This is part of the area that might have held stagecoach races, seriously. And also they did have the automobile races, which incorporated a track which ran around the perimeter and through the grounds. Quite a large motorsport event at that time. Sort of introduction of motorsports in a lot of ways. That was not, cars were not for everyone yet, and this was unsafe racing.
Just to go back real quick, I noticed they had the creation right next to the incubator babies, right?
That's what I wanted to show. So they had different stories. This says something about a flood, Dayton flood. I haven't seen all of the details. There's so much to be gained here. This scenic railway, so they had a train that you could ride around the entire property. Something I did want to think, now that you brought me back here, this striped line here, that was what was indicated for that's for car parking, automobile parking. So this whole area, that just shows the time period. That's not how people were getting to this event. Mm-hmm. But then here's quite a nice, more famous picture. This one incorporates the completed Tower of Jewels and the Palace of Fine Arts, and we see amazing structure, a very tall wall, very mature trees, large trees, all in place. Back around here, we're going to see that the eucalyptus trees are going to be very prominent as well. These may be eucalyptus. They could be up to 60 feet tall, according to the print material, supposedly all transplanted from another location and planted for this event. I did some shopping for eucalyptus trees. I thought it would be nice to see what's available, and it seems like
Frozen in time.
it's really nice.
Oh, you're back. You glitched for a second. There, okay.
I want to make sure. So I'm now going to the next series of photos. So this one is going to include a variety of historical aerial photography. So this one here, I believe, is from the 40s, and it shows the detail, the layout of the constructed shoreline. So from this point all the way down to the curved corner and into this portion, and then into Fort Mason itself, is all heavy masonry brick seawall with a concave surface. Foundation goes below sea level. It follows all the way around through this intersection that has arches and octagonal features, continues around this entire wharf area. There's an octagonal mini lighthouse. So very fascinating that they had time for that level of masonry.
Right.
But this is after the fairgrounds had been removed. So essentially everything in the picture, except for the Palace of Fine Arts, was the fairgrounds.
Daniel's asking, please repeat the info about the trees. The stream froze. I don't know if did you mention anything else?
So I didn't mention too much about the eucalyptus trees, other than the fact that they were very tall, and in the older pictures, they're already well established. A tree that size, maybe 60 to 70 feet, could take 40 or 50 years to grow, 30 years at the earliest. And so these were supposedly transplanted into place. But today's market, if you're looking for landscaping, it's difficult to find a tree larger than 6 feet for transplanting from the nurseries, and they're over $200 a piece, over $200 each.
Right. Yeah.
So here's after the fairgrounds have been completely demolished and the grid is visible where the new streets are going to be. Each of these areas looks completely devastated. Looks like a lot of wreckage here, but notice the building itself, a lot of overgrowth, a lot of trees here. But here's our first look, and we're going to be looking for these features. At the end of, it's 1,100 feet long, so almost a quarter mile long.
Wow.
At the end, it has more columns and built up structure. On the outside, it has a large feature with amazing features around the doors and 2 pairs of the weeping women. Then on the inside, 4 sets of the weeping women, plus a parapet around the inner perimeter that has extreme detail. So we're going to be looking at what the building looks like today, and then some of the older photos that are going to show us much greater detail.
Yeah, that place is just massive.
So this is
just like
once again. I'm sorry.
So people are mentioning too, circuit board. The place is massive. I mean, it's just an incredible thing built by donkeys back in the day, right?
So the numbers are staggering when we try to think about how many people would need to be there. But you might remember the AI discussion specifically about this building only, and it is estimated to be 3 million cubic feet of concrete for just this small portion. Then we start to look at what's here. This almost looks like a city capitol building. So do these. Yep. This looks like any amazing monumental. This looks like the inside of a double Vatican.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Double-sided with triumphant arches. And then as we continue, it just keeps going. And then, of course, this is a very significant seawall. So after demolition and new neighborhood installed, you can see how large this is compared to anything else in the picture. These are the Presidio grounds. And here are endless eucalyptus trees, and here too, all around behind. So we're going to notice that they are present. So here we're going to see that this building has something in common with the glass palaces. It appears as this appears to be a glass ceiling for natural light running the entire distance of the building. Here we can see that these details are on the end of the building. Here's the inner columns, the outer columns, and everything else about the building in this picture is the same, but this altar section, which we're going to get some much better pictures. This building is very complicated, and it does not seem like 1915 America. Doesn't have that feel. So here from the back side. Now this is a much more modern picture. So we're going to see that all of the details have been stripped off. These columns of weeping women, there would have been 4 of them here. And on this side too, you can see the roof has been completely changed. All the glass work is gone. Yeah. But most of this survives. Now this image, I don't know if it's a manipulated image to show what they're planning on doing. This part of it looks kind of animated, but it does show an accurate representation to some extent. It does have the curved streets. These are it is the current city grid, but notice Palace of Fine Arts is here. Golden Gate Bridge is not built, so this is prior to 1934 or 5 when they are said to have started. And here's Fort Point, and here's a lot of the elaborate infrastructure at Presidio directly. So we're looking at possibly one of the last pictures that has the older detail. So if you zoom in, you see that there's more columns. There's a parapet running. All the natural lit window sections are intact. And here's the columns rising. Parapet continues, and much more complicated column sections. So we'll see in the later pictures that the building's just blocked off. This section here, these are just gone, and this roof is terrible. It looks like it may have been a tar and gravel roof, and then they made it one of these paint-on rubber roofs. This dome is currently like a mop on white rubber roof. Very boring. I'd be curious to know what it was originally made of, but I'm thinking it might have been copper or some other metal, something more useful. So we're looking again into the details. This looks like it's possibly damaged. There's broken windows. There's possibly some damage here. And yet these columns exist, but these grounds are very overgrown now. This is all easy walking now if you want to tour. But here you're able to see closely the urns. So they're inside of every opening, the lion's heads, the upper urns, and then the male and female repeating titans that repeat around.
Those urns are so oversized too. Those urns are so oversized just compared to those people that you showed earlier. I mean,
right.
Everything's oversized, but I don't think I've seen an urn quite that big before. I've seen some, but those are incredible.
They're in really good shape. The concrete is not damaged. It's held up well. There's a lot of detail. Some of it is embossed Latin writing, which is interesting when we start to think about what it would take to make these urns. Everything would be written in reverse for the imprints. And we'll see the detail and start to wonder how these molds may have been made, but more importantly, how would they even be removed? These are getting into like 4 and 5D renderings or something. So this picture here, which has it has the appearance of a negative image. So some of this detail flashes out real well for us. So notice the 4 columns on the inner large openings that go directly through the building. So you've got huge doors with a lot of elaborate detail. And then these large structures with the weeping women. You could walk through this giant door, walk through the center of the exposition hall, come through another set of giant doors, walk straight through this arch, center of Rotunda, and straight to the altar. But you see this, the decor. And we saw the other buildings might have been better, might have been nicer. Who would build that way if it was supposed to be temporary? It's hard to understand how and why. So an area, once the this picture here, everything is wiped. So these areas here, whatever was here no longer exists. And there's sort of a transparency of where the new buildings are going to eventually be. You can sort of make that out. There are some structures that are still standing in this photo. Very old arches, peaking. This looks like a castle. And this looks like a Parthenon. It's got has a Parthenon and this running row of arches. And we see a lot of very tall trees as well. So this is probably a eucalyptus tree, and it's probably 100 feet tall. And then we have what looks like temporary barracks or other structures. In later pictures, this becomes an airstrip for this fort area, which would become Crissy Field. And there's some, there's been a lot of usages. There's even stories that during World War II, surplus military vehicles were being stored here as part of the military base.
Story after story.
So we're going to go to the next set. A short one. So this is one of the only, what is being told is a construction photo. And I see a lot of interesting things in the photo. It is, if it is truly a construction photo, the precision of that build is incredible. To create an arc in these, according to the print media, this building was concrete and steel, so these have got to be girders. And here they're framing up, which would be this entrance for giants. And then we see the large dome. That's if this is a legitimate construction photo. There's no equipment in sight. There's no truck.
Body in sight.
There's a couple. I mean, I think this guy in his white leisure suit is probably not going to go do some drilling.
They're all on lunch break. They're all on lunch break.
Everybody clear the property. We've got to get some photos. But so there's very little. There seems to be piles of materials off in the distance. Looks like lumber, which this is not a wood structure, so it's not, for whatever, it's not related. There's no wood here. I don't see any evidence of concrete preparation anywhere. But on the other hand, that building's done, and so is the walled city, and so are these 70 or 80 foot eucalyptus trees that were said to be dug up locally and moved over here. And that's it's too big for donkey carts. I don't think they had that ability.
No, I don't think so.
So this picture here, I do not know the time that it was supposed to be. It's possible we could extract a star count and get an idea.
That's funny right there. The old flag. They have to have two people up there holding the
Yeah,
corporation
these
flag.
guys, they're up there doing something. Exactly.
Yeah.
So this scaffolding here is over all of the existing structure complete. You can see all the detail. Here's the male Titan. Here's the female Titan, which repeat around the building. You can see the relief behind the so-called scaffolding, which just looks more like an obstruction. I mean, I don't know where you would really stand on this scaffolding. There might be some planks here, but you can kind of see something, but it's hard to know exactly what. And I am not certain yet how much space there is between the top of the rotunda and the inside of the rotunda, and if that lends itself to a inner space, a room or something. So I don't know that. I don't know that. Okay, this is the terrible picture that they show us. So we've been told they just tore it all down, and supposedly you can tear a building in half. You can break it in half, and there's no debris pile. There's a lot of foliage here, absolutely in the way. You think the first thing that they would do if they were going to truly demolish this building is drain the lagoon, drain the lagoon. Somewhere to work, somewhere to stage, but it's not important. This, as far as I know, is the only photo that shows something to do with concrete forms. There is no evidence of concrete pouring. There's no cement truck here. I'm looking at the alignment of the columns and finding that they do not necessarily correlate to what's there. There's this square space. I'm trying to imagine where this is on the property. So this is all we have, and it's kind of a disaster area, and there's a couple guys, and they're supposed to have done this in 3 years, the rebuild. So now we're going to think about the modern day logistics for a moment. 12,000 concrete trucks to fill the forms, which if it was just fluted columns, single vertical columns with no detail, there's things that resemble that now that it's not hard to believe. But when we see the close-up detail of the rest of the building, then we're going to start to wonder, how is that possible? Can it even be done now?
Right. No. My opinion. I mean, there's no way. Just the 12,000 trucks of concrete, right? That's insane in itself for the time.
And what I'm finding is I'm not finding any pictures from locals or from tourists of any stage of this construction demolition work. There's some of the things that we examined, the newsreel, which was very questionable. So we're looking at the intricate detail.
Kairos, you hit that little arrow on the bottom right, so it'll go full. Your arrow on the bottom. There you go. Yep.
See if I can still turn the page. So have a look at all the details. So we're going to find that every capital top has the same intricate repeating detail with no damage. And you see that many of the elements, this is spiraling. It has cavities, air spaces where a mold would have had to have been, and somehow been filled in such a way that there's no voids or air spaces, and that it's going to be strong enough to stay intact and survive the removal of the mold. So we've got a lot of things to think about. So this is the view of the weeping women, and you'll notice that the details are very well. We've got wrinkles and folds, heels of feet, gown, these ruffles. 76 times they're up there right now, and every single one of them is the same. So we might wonder how many molds did they have? Did they have one for each one, or did they have to use one and move on? Then you'll see the extreme detail around each of the intersections, points of termination, very deep, very uniform. The geometry, we're going to see the geometry unfold. And then we have various repeating motifs through these sections. These connecting top portions resting on top of another style of column. So this has the square, and these have the round, and the ones around the inside of the rotunda have a very interesting looking woman figure. So notice up in here, even around some of the most intricate details at the very top of the building are these tiny little jelly beans. This tiny little detail, a little tiny little egg, just something. It reminds me of some of the structures that are found in India where literally no square inch is free from decoration. You've probably seen some of those carvings, even up inside of these chambers that it's like, it's dark in there. You have to bring a light in, and it's way up there, and sure enough, carvings. And that seems to be the case here. And so if anyone's ever done any concrete molding, so like you wanted to make a maybe a stepping stone, and you're going to make a simple mold out of a pie tin, and you let it cure, and it's going to have some of these similar pock marks, but it will take on a pretty smooth appearance. It's not something you have to trowel or touch up or coat. If it comes out of a smooth mold, it'll have smooth and sharp detail. And so here we're seeing that that's the case. This repeating detail to complete the design, even to the point of where it makes a termination here with this little U shape before it flips the corner. Even down here, there it is again. Just so precise. We're not going to find any junk work here. Everything is precision, everything is perfect, and we'll start to see that the numbers are also evident in the structure. So this is one of the columns that has the four that look. Some of the older photos indicate that this panel may have been painted or may have had inlaid metal. The appearance is green, like patinaed copper, so it's very possible that that's been removed. Here we're starting to see another little floret, and we're going to see that the octagon is very dominant feature here. Birds flying around. Real nice day. These are a mix of photos from several visits. So you see how complicated this is. So we want to imagine some sort of a mold that we could take off after perfectly filling it, because you have to fill the mold somehow. So if it's going to be under pressure or some sort of a strange mixture, but this seems to have a very large aggregate, so you're not going to pump it through a small tube of some sort under pressure. And I don't know if they were using any type of vibration technology where you can drop a vibrating rod into the mix and it causes it to liquefy, but that usually is only for filling top down, not filling complicated details. So this is probably some of the most masterful concrete mold work you'll find.
Right.
There's a cat that is, he shows up. It seems like each time he shows up. So this here, you'll notice that there's space behind there. That is suspended. It's almost, which part is it attached to? The bottom or the top? And then these are the acanthus leaves that we've seen. This looks like a possible repair. One of very, very few. And the repairs usually look terrible. So they could have done a lot better job. But so even in these very highest points, it just, the details continue. It's lost to everyone without a zoom. So here we're going to see a very familiar symbol. And there are hundreds of swastikas on the Palace of Fine Arts in various forms. But at this particular level, they run around the entire building. It is a box with 4 dots spaced by 2 swastikas in a box, and it repeats around this very intricate and complicated upper element. And then we see this other strange plant-like 7-headed, 7-leafed. We'll get to see that again pretty soon. This was after this visit, after visiting so many times, I finally found Green Man. Have you heard of him?
I have not. I don't
So
think.
he makes his appearance on many buildings all over the world, and he's like a plant man. He has a very similar face.
Yeah, I
But
take that back. I have seen those. Yes.
I might have seen him. So he's here. Now we're inside the arch of the rotunda, and we're seeing where 3 different types of columns are visible, and then we're starting to get into the intricate detail of the rotunda and the angels. But notice these knobs and these leaves, they're very wave or shell like, twisting. So we have to think about filling that mold.
Right.
And what they said they did, this makes it more difficult, is that they made an exact replica of what was already here. So we need to know, how did they take off the molds from the existing building before they tore it down? And why don't we see photos of that happening, or mold filling? So just intricate, high quality, very uniform color concrete.
Yeah, the detail is just insane. It really is. And the columns, the red, and then you go to the tan.
So
That's you got something on that?
yes, so this red appears to be possibly a stain. It looks like it's something they probably apply fairly regularly. It does not look natural, and it does not resemble the earlier photos. It looks like it almost looks like in some areas like a very thin layer, like a thin slurry paint stain was applied over everything.
Okay.
You see these colors. So, or we're gonna take it a step further, and these guys, not only did they bring the 12,000 trucks, but they had specialty trucks that had tinted concrete for these ones, and that's apparently what this is. So we get a really good look at what's going on here. Top level, all the swastikas, all these 7-headed or elements. There's a maybe some of the ones watching have heard of the Hindi Nagas. There is a 7-headed snake god, snake creature, and that really resembles it well, very similar to what's found on the Indian structures. Now this detail here, each red column has the 3 women, which is very ornate and apparently not safe for work or something. So this image is repeated over and over again. So we've got Look at them all. There's,
Yeah.
I believe there's 48 of them. And each one is perfectly intricate, but notice this round feature and how it's hanging off and suspended separate from the rest of the mold. It's just able to withstand. Now this building here, regardless of its history of when it was actually constructed or not, withstood the 1989 San Francisco earthquake, which damaged a large portion of that marina district, and the engineered freeway system was pancaking. This building in a swamp is perfectly standing. This one here is a first look
My
at a
favorite
different
shape.
So I know that, I can tell. I saw your smile.
Mhm.
But we can see this has bubbles, and it's very dark, and it's very corroded, and it seems to be changing. Some of it, this becomes the part that moss grows on, and this algae. But that's not erosion,
No.
and that's not an area where they had a mold failure. This is something different. And we see it throughout. So then you see again, the size of the building, and these access doors, which go around the inside of the exhibition hall, are clearly for giants, and this is the small one. That's the small door. Here's these large planters. Don't know if I can extract the swastikas from around their perimeter. There's doors that go into the structure throughout. Some of them are original design, and some, like this one, they literally saw it into the building and put a door in place. And I'll be able to show a much better crosscut. Here we see some significant staining, seems accelerated. This is very interesting with those, again, the 7-headed feature. Here's the urns in comparison.
Massive. Yeah.
So imagine lifting them up and getting them into place. It looks like there's another urn here. There's some sort of we got this one up here, like a lesser urn.
Mm-hmm.
Very interesting. So here's another area that has some bubbling and very hard discoloration, but then you see up here how sharp the detail is to fill that to fill those molds so well. You'd think there'd be, voids and pockets. This part here is maybe the most interesting part of the entire property as far as molds are concerned, because of how close these are to each other. These different, you can see the leaves are almost touching.
Right.
So I don't know, how would you even get a mold out of there? You're not going to lift that into place. This is all a big chunk.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not really sure what this is. I don't know if this, if anyone sees anything in this. I'm almost seeing a two-headed eagle, but that's maybe my imagination. But here's, you can see more everywhere you look. It's precision and identical to the other portions of the building. It's just amazing looking in every direction. If you look carefully, you'll see there's the lion's head too. It's just it's a true feast for the eyes. Now here's something that does exist, is you'll notice these small holes here, here, here. here, little holes. They're drill holes, and they've been backfilled with a non-matching plaster or epoxy. So I don't know what we're being told about that. Now here's an example of the size of the urns compared to the size of a very large door. This is a normal sized door. This is an oversized original doorway that was built into the building. You can see the columns turn. There's a step. This returns into its natural space. This was part of the original construction. Over here, they cut through this wall, not in the center, and you can see the saw marks where that happened. So we want to wonder what's inside the building and why isn't it not part of the tour.
Yeah.
So here we get a look.
That.
Here's what they've done. So this is an older photo. This is a very horribly applied tar and gravel roof, just slathered on. All the windows have been removed except for a couple of these panels. The top of these, which seem to have been recessed in some of the earlier photos, have all been filled and topped with concrete or some sort of a white roofing membrane that resembles this. So it seems to be the white material, white top, and here, not the original.
Yeah, Kathy says, why are the urns larger than the doors? Yeah, very good question.
Yeah, they're quite sizable. Okay, moving along. Let me go to the next.
Fantastic.
I hope everyone's able to hear me well and see everything, and we're going at a good pace for you.
Yeah, those pictures are incredible, Kairos. I appreciate you taking them, showing them. It's great.
So this is where we're going to get into some very unusual photos with some very amazing detail, and we're trying to figure out how this fits in the 1915 United States. So as we look into this relief, this one is repeated twice. So this is not the dominant relief, but what it contains, it's taken me several visits to notice there's more. Here's a person's head in the background. I did not see that before, but very intricately dressed. Many of the men and boys in these images are portrayed naked. Then this is a flying horse. So this is clearly a winged Pegasus, and a lion is with them, and they're playing on a very interesting instrument, a lyre. And then in the background, there's even the intricate detail. I missed it until just earlier. There's another person's silhouette, and this is their gown. So no, they're not sparing any of the detail. But this, when you look up very close, it's kind of ragged and blocky. But you have to remember, it's almost 150 feet in the air. So from the ground, the detail really pops. But up close, it's kind of chunky. But this part of the photo cannot be overlooked. That's a small person. That's a small person in the hand of giants with mythical creatures, and they've got swastikas everywhere. And here's those upper urns, which are almost impossible to see. We'll have a better look at this reading, and we'll have a better look at this griffin.
Yeah, 15 stories up.
Let's see if I'm in the... Okay, I got to make one slight adjustment.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll be right back with that.
No worries, no worries. So cooking people now.
Okay, see if that's back.
Yeah, I see it.
Okay. I'm going to leave it like that so I can see. So this is the dominant This is the dominant relief, and this is repeated 4 times, and it is seen from any position on the property. But you'll notice right away that there's 2 centaurs involved. So you've got, look at the size of this centaur's head and torso compared to 2 men actively fighting, and one guy's down for the count in a really bad way. Really bad way.
Yeah.
And then over here, another centaur. This guy's got his arm behind his back. This guy's getting ready to do his best. This guy's already done. So you've got this amazing fight with mythical creatures. And then there's this woman here, fully naked, seems to be the center of the tension after the fight is over. But notice in the background, there's something happening. There's waves of something, and there's square things with openings that could be crumbling buildings in the background. We don't really know what that is. I don't know what it's supposed to represent. It's difficult to find any real information about what these are supposed to be. Here's another angle of the other one. You can see the detail in the lion's mane and in the hair. And here again is an individual. It's, maybe that's our relatives.
Right. And we're the small people now.
That's right. Little oil lamp. More of this amazing detail. So here's a look. So remember, this one here is about 160 feet up. But when you're able to super zoom, you can pick up a Eiffel Tower-like device, a griffin with his back to another griffin. So there's 4 griffins on each of the 16 urns running around this building. So a very prominent representation. So notice these titans. I think most people think they're both men, but I think this is the woman and this is the man. So breast, headband, hair, and hips. Watch for those details from other angles, where this has the short hair, square jaw, different shaped abdomen, different body shape. But you'll notice they both have, in my opinion, as if they've been surprised. They're caught off guard or they're startled. This is not a happy face, and the arms and hands are tense, like your first reaction before you have to figure out if you're going to defend yourself or not. And this one over here may be more obvious. Maybe a little more of it. Trying to imagine if someone was throwing something at you, and that's the reaction to try to like duck out of the way or block yourself. So is that what happened to giants when they got Medusa'd? Maybe. Is that the look they'd have on their face? Maybe. So these very mythological and very unusual symbolism found in a building that was said to have been reconstructed in the early 60s during the height of social unrest and all the various things. San Francisco, very liberal. Doesn't seem like they'd want to have swastikas on the building. I don't know. So with this lighting, does these look like tumbling buildings? I can't tell. There's something going on. It's very well created. These round representations of those energy waves. Who can really know? Are those flames? Is that the 1906 earthquake? We don't know what that is, but look how it's a wonderful picture frame.
Yeah.
You walk up to a huge picture and it looks like it's coming out of the wall. So dimensional. Each angle and all light produces a much different effect. So here we see that it continues down at ground level, very large and very prominent and very overlooked. People do not seem drawn to it. They're not looking at it. They're not commenting. But notice the erosion of this concrete on top running around that surface as compared to some of the other surfaces. It's hard to imagine how there'd be selective erosion
Right.
on the building.
Yeah.
So here's
selective.
Extreme close-up of the urn. So here's this very sleek looking lion-headed winged creature. So the griffin. But I would say there's anyone, unless someone had a zoom, no one even knows these things are here. I'm still looking for a accurate translation of the urn. So at the very top, before the actual dome starts, there's this repeating intricate pattern of concrete around the entire thing. And you can see there's just a few damaged sections, but for the most part, very well structured. But notice that there's thin detail between each of the elements. So that's very intricate and fragile and a difficult mold to fill. So here's the startled female Titan. And you can see the urn is just above, so very high location. But notice all the intricate detail behind the head. All this fluted material. Everything very well filled. Just, you can see that's clearly an hourglass shaped person. There's no way around it. There's some kind of a female warrior. Then the third relief, which is repeated twice, has some sort of a procession, but not a normal one. Here's a man with a 4-horse chariot, and his chariot has a lion's head on it. And there's people walking behind and people walking in front, and sandaled wearing, just very interesting. A lot of great detail.
Over the top detail to do that in 60s, right?
Well, they said it was done in 1913, and I'm not so sure about that, but I do know that the old photos show that these truly were there, and they were made out of something, and they would have to be something that would withstand the weather, because they are there all the way well into the late 50s in every photo there, and there's nothing different about them. Now, I don't know if these lids come off. I saw one of them that was a little sideways when I was climbing around, and but notice the winged cherubs, feet washing, dancing, continual. So this is a very prominent feature, and it's very high off the ground. But notice these strange handles. Did you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Look at these strange goblins. These guys are wearing the handle as a connective hat, and that guy looks like the Cowardly Lion. It looks like from the Wizard of Oz.
Oh yeah, it does, doesn't it?
That guy looks like what is
wow.
Yeah, real strange looking. Don't know if they're all the same faces. Wouldn't that be something if they had different faces? I don't think they do.
No.
This kind of has pointy ears and beards. So what are those? What are those? Those are not your normal people. So here is a very, very poor repair, and people have been vandalizing, but we see that they have amazing details on everything. Here's that green man again, and then tremendous flowing detail of the leaves.
Have a lot of those green men too, and with like the Aztec kind of stuff, I believe.
Yes, yep, definitely.
Mayans and stuff like that.
That's right, Toltecs. So these obvious swastikas, and then we have these repeating dished, petaled flower or pine cone or something, but very important to the design. Okay, we're doing good.
Yeah, Old World says great photos. They are tremendous. It's a beast. Trying to keep up with this chat, going crazy.
Yeah, in fact, this would be a great time to maybe take a couple photos and say hello. Say hello to a couple people. Hello,
Yeah.
thanks for popping
Yep.
in. Appreciate you. I really appreciate the comments that people leave. I read all the comments, and people have shown me some amazing things, and it's nice to be able to share back. So this is from inside the exhibition hall, and these are either reproduction or replacement or extra angels, full size. This one here looks like it doesn't look like that's what they made. They didn't, I don't think they would make it all stained and red, and I don't know if this one is damaged. But these are elaborate wood, metal clad doors, and you can see the handles are way down here, but it looks like there used to be something up here where you would actually grab it if you were needing the door. Like if you were the size of this angel, this door's still too big.
Mm-hmm.
So another time period. They're on this. They're not always in the same place, but here's how they look up inside. So there's 8 of them, and the arches come down perfectly, and they have all the columns with interesting representations. Very high level of detail. It has an alive look to it. Like, will the eyes blink? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Looks, it's very believable, very good looking. Carrying some sort of cornucopia or something in both arms. I don't know what it is. There's some sort of decoration on the chest. We might be able to see a better picture. Each one is on a pedestal, and the pedestals, I can tell that they've been taken off and on. It's either on the top or bottom, but they're not. Now the top part. This stays. This is the part that's made of a different material that's put on top. So, and I believe this might be the one that had the head replaced. One of the heads was broken off, and they've restored it. So we're getting a good look now at what's going on with this overhead extreme molded concrete again. And then we get into this scroll work, which makes up the inner geometry of the rotunda. The geometry has the appearance of a concaved rose window. Each one of these cells are 27 by 23 feet, and they contained large painted murals. And we're going to see some of the older black and white photos. I'm not sure, but they could be plastered or painted over, and they could still be there. That
Right.
I don't know that, but I want to show this detail. This is like the most elaborate picture frame you can ever imagine. So they're all interlocking, and we might wonder what is that made out of. So is it terracotta? Is it plaster? Is it wood? Is it carved hardwood?
Right.
Is this plaster? Is that brick? Is it masonry? Or these terracotta sections? But notice the number of 6-pointed wheels that go around each section is predictable and uniform and repeating, as are these possible double wings, similar to the wings that are seen on some of the Egyptian decorations. Very, very similar styling. So we can see that there appears to be little glitches in the plastering, possibly. Is that hard plaster, or is that legitimate concrete? You can even see there's even fluting behind the double winged scroll where no one would ever possibly see. So here's the to get an idea of just the size of it and what's involved. So from this angle, you can always see the prominent motif, the fighting centaurs and the woman. Then there's one of the other two, and then over here, fighting centaurs. So it goes back and forth, as do these titans, alternating back and forth. And here you can see all the urns with their Latin banners around every single one. My question is, and I'm not sure, so the banners all face out. I'm curious if on the opposite side of these urns, all the details are in place. So I guess that, the workers, when they're up there, they could see it. Notice these are, those are large cut holes through the concrete. It appears to be something done after the fact, and there's also a lot of utilities and lights and things that have been attached and removed over the years. So they seem to, they've damaged it. So this is the condition that it was in the time before last. Something caused this to break off.
So this is the one they replaced, the head? Or
yes.
Yeah, okay.
So we can see inside, it appears to be some sort of a plaster, and it might have metal internally. They're all identical, and they're pretty amazing. But it's another element brought into the public stage, the angel. So whoever built this thought that angels and Pegasus and centaurs and all the things were real, or
right.
This is what they thought they needed. So we're looking up into, and you see the geometry, just incredible.
I remember thinking real quick, Kairos, and there was a comment back. Anyway, the mythology figures and everything we see everywhere, all these wing things and horse and man, and back in the day, they just told us it was just mythology. Was it all real? Because then you think, okay, people have an imagination and you can put stuff on whatever figures, but there's some things that you're just like, okay, where did they come up with this stuff? Especially with all the narratives they tell us. But I've leaned more and more since all this research and stuff that probably this stuff existed at one time. Yeah. There's no way that you're just going to make up all this stuff as far as these weird looking beings, I guess you could say.
If it was just confined to one location, right? But we see it everywhere. It's over in areas that are thousands of miles apart that shouldn't have been able to communicate with each other at the time. Some are suggesting that the griffin might have been a representation of the Tartarian nation or realm or whatever we're going to call it. But this group of people that built things like this.
Right.
So now we're going to see some of the inner shape. So each of these 8 inner arches, they land on a triangle. So we've got the inner column, and then it triangulates out, and the columns sit at an angle. And this repeats around over and over. And in the inside, this person is standing on a medallion, surrounded by a ring of medallions, surrounded by an outer ring of medallions with concentric circular patterns set into the concrete that extend out into the walkway. This again is one of the doors. It used to have large columns, and the weeping women were up above here. But you can see now it's been, this was during the time period when they said the building was being reconstructed. But it was actually when they were deconstructing and remodeling and removing details. This is one of the areas where that happened. So you can see this is a very boring plaster wall. When I knock on it, it's hollow. So they've built a facade wall onto the structural wall, and then it's very poor quality plaster and very boring. So here we get a look from the center of the medallion looking up, and you see the angels are looking in, and they have the amazing geometry. Now, each of these would have once again been a very spectacular mural, but then we see that these intricate details are all woven in, so everything is perfectly fitting and interlocking. So we're told that they replicated this. This is a 1960s replica of a 1913 original installation. And when we see the older pictures, we will see that the details are perfect, which leads me to believe that this actually is the original structure, which has been damaged on purpose and modified, and the beauty taken out of it, as well as a lot of other statues, which may have answered more questions.
Yeah, why would you ever cover those paintings up? Or
So
whatever?
this is one of the old photos that actually shows. So these are the individually painted massive murals, and it's hard to see the detail of what they are in this photo, but they are large, and you'd be able to stand at each of the openings and look at them and look at the surface of these columns compared to what we see in the pictures. It's almost like there was a coating applied over a more interesting column, but the detail of the columns are still the same, and so are all the scroll work inside these cells. So there used to be a warrior goddess in the center of the rotunda, where the center medallion now sits.
Yeah, why would you take that out?
And then here's a great look at it. Has like a Sistine Chapel or rotundas of various capital buildings. Very well done, very brilliant, vibrant color. Not something that was turned out. It was a masterpiece. Each one was a one-off.
Yeah.
Here's an example of one. So this is from one of the publications that's available doing your research. But notice what's here. We've got a warrior on a horse coming from the clouds. We've got an angel in the clouds. Then we've got someone praying or looking on something, a baby with a nimbus, possibly a Jesus person. Then we've got another warrior woman, and then we've got a woman with the longest hair I've ever seen. or maybe it's a peacock.
Yeah, right. Peacock. Oh yeah, that's a peacock. Yeah.
It was like I slipped Rapunzel in here to throw me a curveball, but no, that's a peacock, glorious peacock. So this is just one of 8, each one having an amazing story. What's happening with this person here, and they're holding some sort of a blown bottle. I don't know, some sort of a gourd. Amazing. Okay, we're doing great. We're now going to your favorite part.
What's that? This one.
We're
I
going to look
don't
at
see
the
many previous structures from the second, third era in Europe. America definitely has them. Yeah.
trying to open up the. I'm doing it.
Do it.
So this is now going. We're now going to focus on some of the damage and the internal makeup of the concrete itself.
Mm-hmm.
So popping out. So I don't know if we're to believe this is a failed mold and nobody bothered to take their trowel and clean it out or whatever. Instead, we have what looks like volcanic rock, is what we'd be told, with the
Mm-hmm.
air holes that make up the aggregate, and it's made of red material. So that's very strange, but to be noted. So at the base of each column, from about the inside portion of this part of the indentation down on every column, it's almost like a line of damage, like a water line. So it appears to go around the entire building, around every column. The base of the column have these crumbling, misshapen, and then it looks like accelerated erosion, which this is not susceptible to that. And there's a lot more concrete higher that would get a direct hit. This one here is a much better shot of what we were looking at earlier. And we're seeing it's very blackened.
Mm-hmm.
This is not how it would have come out of the mold. Misshapen, miscolored.
Deformed.
This slightly darker red up here, changing the color before it returns to the uniform lighter color that we see everywhere else. But this area here, confined to the top of this column, it's bubbling.
Yes. I agree with Babylon Fox fried.
But also keep in mind that this is one of just another amazing concrete mold that would have needed to be filled. I would love to see what those molds look like, and I still wonder why there's no history or records of them doing it. It seems like that should be on display permanently too. It's that's really an accomplishment to perfectly mimic an existing building before demolition and then build it back in such a way that you cannot distinguish it from the original on any detail in 3 years. Okay, so this one here I thought was interesting. So this is a couple of years ago, and this is the normal water line for the pond. So normally you walk up to the edge and the water's right there. Well, this day the pond was exceptionally low. I don't know if they didn't drain, but we see that these are huge sections. Some are granite. I don't know if these are. It's very hard to tell because there's so much algae. But whatever they are, they're resting on vertical posts that are made of, again, concrete or granite emerging out of the swamp and able to withstand any kind of earthquake damage whatsoever. So this, again, hardest hit area in the city, no damage. There's some areas where there appears to be bore holes or test holes or inspection holes. There seems to be a lot of voids, and there's, like I said, a lot of locked doors, and there's talk of chambers. I saw a short video of an area inside of one of the doorways, and they referred to it as a resonance chamber. And they had a special musical instrument that they were playing in there with the purpose of activating architectural vibrational potential, we'll call it that. So they were playing the building like an instrument from inside the building. So this here has the, at the point of damage, you can see it's gone red and then bursting out. And we're seeing, this is not something you see in modern concrete today. This is not what they use in the mix. This looks like it was molten or something. I'm curious if a band of heat or electricity went through this building, and it may be built in such a way that it's more suited to resist that kind of frequency or energy. But this part here may have burst.
Right.
Very, very unusual to see that. So this exists on the property, and it's just a few feet away from the main entrance, and it's seen by almost no one even detects it. So there's a hatch on top, and you can look down in there, and it goes deep underground. But then there's an arch here, which has been blocked up, and that brick is a vacated brick. The mortar stands alone.
Yeah.
And there's some damage here. So this, to me, is one of the last little reminders on the property that there is a brick underground in San Francisco, over 1,000 miles, that's connecting under most of the streets, certainly under this old infrastructure. When I was down at the marina along the water line, I did find several areas where the tunnels came out for the sewers, and there was a collapsed portion of city sidewalk out on that constructed jetty. And you could see the old foundations of the older buildings that were made of a different kind of brick and appeared to be like stone girders to support the old building. But the ocean had undermined that section, so it is still visible if anyone wants to go explore that. So I don't know how to describe that. First of all, how do you do that to concrete?
Right. I mean,
And
there's not any really logical explanation for that.
And how do you do it only right here? Not over here, not down here, and it seems like there's some spillover of the red, almost like a heat penetration, and then it tapers back off. But that's very unusual. I can almost imagine the energy rising through the column and whipping up, and up here it spiraled out and like spun out of these knobs and dissipated and just kind of left a spark behind or something. You can imagine that kind of animated, swirling energies, they sparking. Hard to know exactly what they were up to.
Yeah, just imagine this. I mean, all these buildings and structures, just energy, produce energy of some kind, seems like, and electrical heat running through circuit board like realm, and affected different places differently. It's really hard to explain. I mean, you can see it in your mind kind of, but especially with fried circuit boards and stuff like that. But on a scale like this, it's just mind blowing.
Yeah. We looked at those photos earlier, the one from the balloon looking over the grounds, and it has a very circuit board look to it. It looks like modules and chips put into place, and then the geometry is so clear. So now we're in the final reel, which are the historical photos, which are said to be either during or shortly after, or possibly right before the 1915 fair. So
Kairos, I'll be back in about 2 minutes.
Once again, okay. So we're looking through and noticing that there's a hedge work here, and the lagoon is full. The panels are in the correct location. So we're seeing that these features are the same, but notice this one, there is some sort of a dome and some spires or antennas that are either on this top or we're seeing it from behind. But a lot of the other detail that we might have been able to see seems to be whitewashed out of the sky. We should see something under there. Hope everyone is doing great in the chat. Haven't been able to interact, but it's been great knowing that you're there listening along. Have a look at this photo, and we're going to see the altar down in the front. So if we're looking straight across, we're going to see the dominant motif, the Pegasus and the lion, the Titans, the four-horsed chariot rider motif, and the urns. This section here has detail where what's happening now, this has all been smoothed out and missing the detail. The lion heads are the same. These columns have the appearance of marble in their finish as opposed to the solid red. Glad you're back. Notice this altar. So down in front is another large concrete structure with additional urns. Has the look of a elevated cemetery piece with statuary, and I believe this is the large goddess in the center of the rotunda. And of course, if it was brighter, you'd see the paintings here. So this is after the demolition and the reselling of found land with interest and all the things that they decided to start doing. So we see the vehicles that were being used, the style of newer construction, not glorious like what was there before. Here's the Palace of Fine Arts in the distance, and a lot of wreckage, not a lot of construction or vehicles going on, so not a large population, it seems.
No.
So this is from some of the print media and private collections from when the fair was being attended. So this is one of the ornate details around the exhibition hall's main doors. So what we saw before was just a very square frame and very boring, where this has more detail, more urns, and difficult to tell if this is the same inscription and griffins or not. The resolution doesn't allow for it, but these would be readable if you were walking around. And notice these doors are huge, so the head of a person is going to be around here somewhere. So it's still, but you could probably make it out, but you'd have to read archaic Romanized Latin, which is probably not what this crowd was aware of. So older photo, no one in the pictures, but here's the altar again. This incredible hedge or structure that had ivy growing over it. It's hard to tell, or it's obscuring something, or there's something behind that that they don't want in the pictures. I don't know that. But again, the Pegasus relief is correctly oriented, so it's exactly where it should be. Nothing else has changed except the missing pieces. So here's the area after a lot of demolition, and there's still some residue. We've got some extreme statuary and components from other buildings that might be being sold off. There's still a massive column in the main thoroughfare. And then this exists, but up on the hill, it doesn't have quite the stand of eucalyptus that it should. So this picture, it's hard to judge the exact age of it. Would you be told it's probably like 1916? But there's no evidence that anyone's working here, but they do seem to be restoring an existing grid line, or that's the grid line between each of those amazing buildings. But it looks like the grass has been growing for some time, so hard to get a sense of how much time has passed. So in this photo, we see this elaborate parapet, this upper rail above the arched 1,100-foot long exhibition hall. And then we get a picture of these upper urns between these openings, or the doorways. So very elaborate compared to what's there now. So now there's no detail on the top. It just goes up to a square finish. This is all gone, and this entire wall is single color plastering, and all of the detail is gone. This amazing statue, which I might need some help interpreting, is obviously gone, but on a huge pedestal, some sort of a metal embossed information or something. This could be bronze, and I can't tell if it's 3 people or 2. I don't know if that's a head of a person, and then are these the legs and head of a smaller person? Are there 2 children here?
Right, maybe one holding the other. I can't
Couple
tell.
kids. Yeah, there's some of the older statuary. There were a lot of children that were being presented in the statuary, dancing around the fountains and playing, and bow and arrow and all the various things, but always naked.
Right.
So here we see it once again, looking at the main structure, weeping women. Then over here on the main structure, into the main entrance of the exhibition hall, they continued that along. So that's clearly what was removed during their reconstruction process. They took all of these components off and away. Who knows if these were made of valuable metals? Who knows if there's anything inside of these structures that are useful? You know, we were not told any of these things.
I want to know what's inside the urns.
I might have to go up and look. So very large trees. The grounds are kind of littered. This may or may not be 1936, but I wanted to show that this is before they tore down the large dome buildings behind the walled city. So here you can get an idea of how tall that wall really was. So this would be over across the street somewhere, and these are going to be similar sized as, or height wise, as the columns or the rotunda, and they just continue on. Another look at some other buildings that were still here in the background. So this is in the Presidio area. Here is the forest of eucalyptus trees. Here is some sort of a structure, very tall, not part of the palace, behind. This might be on the end of the exhibition hall. These end points on top of the squared off parts. Looks like it used to be part of the building. But then back here, more domes, more arches, strange octagonal booths. And then there's this. Now this one here, you can tell it's not new. It has, you know, it's got some blemishes on there. But then there's this star. So if you do some research into the photos of this Pan Pacific, these exist all over the property, everywhere. And they also have another statue called the Star Girl, and that used to run along the top of another one of the notable buildings, except they were all bronze, and there looked like there was about 50 of them. And there's still one on display in a building in downtown San Francisco. You can go inside of a building and they have one. And it's nothing. It's like nothing you've ever seen. The Star Girl. So this is a very old picture. A few people walking around, and this is all gone. All of this is also very amazing. And look at the landscape that's coming out, growing. This particular planter and urn is seen on the inside of the structure. This looks like they had even more of them than what they currently have.
It's like a
So these
forest.
amazing, right? So very overgrown, and statues coming out from all locations. Here shows that there was some sort of a segmented roof, and some other pictures seem to indicate it like it might have been metal. Now this here's these unusual hedge sections, and then there's this round elliptical bowl, and this altar with the urns sits directly in the middle. This has all been scalped, so that's just flat concrete, no evidence. Whatever that was is no longer there. So we're looking at their credits, their various credits. But here's a very old photo, and we see that the details are identical. All of the intricate hidden script and details is exactly the same. But then you can get a look at the parapet detail. These are little miniature columns with little stacked layers inside. I have no idea what those would be for. But here's the enormous columns that border both sides of the doors. You can see behind the column. Mm-hmm. So this would be, if we listen to the narrative, which is insane, they would have started this project sometime in 1912 or 11 and finished by 1914 for this fair. So 2 years, not only this building, but every building. Then we're told that it was 4 years to tear off all of these items and present it as it is now. So it took longer to strip off and represent and clean than it did to originally build the whole 635-acre fairground.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, right?
So here we see maybe one of the best details of the altar. So again, we have lost details here. Some sort of a device, a large medallion with detail. I don't know what that is right here. I don't know if so we've got these urns, but what if that was a freestanding griffin down below? I can't tell what it is, but it almost looks like an animal. I don't know. So even this very old image clearly shows us the dominant relief. Once again, the Titans, startled, male and female, angels, all the columns, everything's in its place. Don't know if anyone's remembers this photo. So this shows some amazing fairgoers in this strange boat. I don't know how this boat is powered, but I don't see them. I don't know if this guy is supposed to be rowing. These guys are paddling, but this person is dressed in a very strange way.
Yeah.
And so is this guy. I don't know what their story is. And that's like a very
any moment too.
And have a look at this elaborate
Little
sitting
pavilion.
area, and then out front is like a giant butterfly. There's a giant monarch butterfly out front,
Yeah, look at that.
and so they've got more of them coming. You know, it kind of reminds me of that terrible ride in the Willy Wonka movie when he took them on that boat ride and screwed them over.
Right.
Fed all that information into them and they couldn't stand it. It's just like the same thing.
Yeah.
But how about this?
Look
What's
at that
that?
in the back. Yeah.
What is that? So this got torn down,
Wow.
and
Look at that.
that does not look temporary to me. I'm not, and even if it was, I mean, who cares what it was made out of?
Even
What
look
would,
like represents organs.
I think you're
Looks
right.
organ look. Yeah.
I think you're right. And then even in this detail, because the detail is easy to see if you know, if you start to see it and look, here's the parapet, and then back here, pediment capital top, massive door, columns, very old time period. And this does not, I mean, that just looks like concrete to me. It does not resemble anything but concrete, and very weathered concrete, by the way, because it's supposed to be, you know, the fair was only open for 6 months or 8 months. So they were wrapping up the build, and now it looks 100 years old already.
Right.
So they may have power washed it in recent years and applied some kind of a coating or stain. Hard to know. So here we are back with this unusual statue. But notice in this one, in the center of this panel, there's just some design to it, where now it's just flat and smooth. So that look is not present. There seems to be a little more, there's something going on in this particular photo. I cannot make out what this is. I don't know what's supposed to be in this little space. It almost looks like an egg. There's a little ladder, so you could like put something in there if you wanted to. And then there's another ladder and stairs down to the water and some sort of a curtain. But it looks like water's flowing, doesn't it? Does that not look like a waterfall?
Yeah.
It looks like possible flowing water. I don't know what's going on over here. So a lot of amazing detail, and of course, here's those swastikas. They're clearly on the building, and they would be around. This is the part that you can see them now. So if you start up here and go around this entire soffit edge, it's all swastikas around the entire perimeter. There's hundreds of them. Well, I think we made it. We made it through my pictures, and I have so much more, but it's perfectly fine. That I was hoping to show some spectacular video footage from my recent trip, and just maybe as a preview, I'd like to describe what I have, but I do walk along the marina and show the degraded seawall, and it's again it's not similar construction, but similar conditions as Fort Point. The foundation's always below sea level. Always below sea level. So that tells me that when they installed that wall, sea levels were lower, because they're not going to build a 1.5 mile long seawall in front of their seawall so they can build their seawall. When do you stop, you know? So and the condition, the cobble, the mix of materials, the granite, the various colors, there's bricks intermingled with these walls, and there's blocked up entrance ways. It's quite fantastic. Glad you could make it, Melanie. Thanks for popping in.
Yes.
But I have a few minutes if anyone would like to ask any questions about this location, other places. Maybe you've got a question about my gear. Using some nice camera and gimbal right now, so that's improving the quality of the videos for sure.
Yeah, your videos and pictures are great, man. Before we get out of here, can I just want to show just
Yes.
five pics here. I think go ahead while I try to do this real quick. It's been a while. Let's see here. Okay, so man.
Yeah, see, Holger makes a comment about the surface is 10 feet below. So they've paved over lower levels. Current ground level is not original ground level of the entire property. They've installed pavement. What do we have here?
So here we have, this is Oaks Ames Memorial in Massachusetts, David Wayne channel. He's done this place a couple of times, and I just wanted to reference this place. This is one of my favorites too, because now this is all covered. It was supposed to have been, I think the narrative is in the late 1800s. It's built in like a year or two, but the point of this is we have these intricate detail, but you can't call erosion because this is covered, and this is what's happened to these columns, and this is on the inside here.
Okay, good.
And it has changed, and this was an animal of some sorts here, and there's another animal here, but on the front you can pretty much tell what all these animals are, but it's just cooked.
Something clearly happened there. I noticed the styling of the mold work is similar. The designs are different, but it's intricate.
Right.
Look at that. It's boiling out from behind itself.
Yeah. And this is on the outside. This is not covered, but just it's like half and half. I mean, it's all damaged, but you can tell that something's happened here, and it's not by erosion. And even over here, you can call it block work, or it possibly could have been brick and covered. And what it's doing, this is not from any kind of weathering or something for 120, 30 years or something. But I just wanted to show these just because of the columns and stuff you were showing.
Those look great, and they're very similar.
Yeah.
So this is also unexpected construction in the United States that doesn't fit the time period or current beliefs of the people. Is that what we're saying again?
Right.
Nope.
Yeah. Shocker, right?
We're putting this building and nobody believes in any of the stuff that's on the building. Nobody, we like it though. And but they don't do that anymore. No more.
No.
Very interesting.
And here's just an area here that's just totally, it's just gone. It's this is definitely not a road. This is undercover, and it's changed to this somehow. Here's some of this blockage, but it's expanding out, looks like. And the front is now this is not the same place, but I just wanted to leave with this one. I mean, with this column, I'm not sure. I can't remember where this is at, but it's fried, cooked. You can compare it to the left and the right, but what does that? And you can't. There's nothing that we're taught that can recreate that, and from anything.
There was energy,
right?
Some sort of energy.
Seems that way. Seems that way. Yep.
Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
So you notice I've got my top hat
on
top of my T-car brick. And I shaved. I shaved again too.
Yeah, man. What's up with that? You come on here and we get together and you shaved your beard off? What's up?
I'll be back soon. It's been a few days.
Just grow some more wisdom. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Mine's almost all gray. Yeah, not that old. Well, I do turn half a century this year or next month. So
I'm approaching 60 myself. So where are you exploring next? I know you've been taking care of some other things, and I have too, but I know you're going to put your boots back on. Where are you going?
Yeah, I've been extremely busy for the past few months, but of course, it doesn't stop me from doing this. But not much as I want. I don't. I don't know. I want to go up north a little bit, but you mentioned I would like to go to the Parthenon. You mentioned that it's probably not that too far from me, and we were discussing then the crazy Clash of the Titans um, statue in there, and it's probably where they filmed the movie. I don't know,
I
but
would. Well, if people are not familiar with this, it's another World Fair site, and it's another similar narrative to the Palace of Fine Arts in that they supposedly tore the building down and rebuilt it exactly the same as before, except concrete this time. And it's not only a scale replica of itself, but it's also a scale replica, just not destroyed, as the Parthenon in Greece. So it has maybe one of the largest indoor statues. And it's a strange goddess with a small person and crazy stuff. I hope you go.
I too. I think it's green color. I think I could be wrong.
It's a lot of it's painted.
Is it?
They say
Okay.
a lot of they were claiming that a lot of the ancient statuary in these buildings are not like we see them now, just raw white, but a lot of them are actually hand painted and very colorful.
Never go full melt, you'll turn into a mountain.
Never melt.
That's
right. That's if the thing went full. I guess that's a new catchphrase when we see something like behind your screen there. I went full melt. Never go full melt.
It's such an incredible boots on the ground, man. I really do appreciate you getting together and doing this. And
I would like to visit with you again sooner than later when I get that video tour put together. It's about 35 minutes long, and it's all very high quality close up and on the gimbal with the high powered camera, so very steady footage. Hopefully have it ready soon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes. Be nice.
Where do you want me to go? Maybe the audience could. I go a lot of places in the Bay Area. Is there some place I'm missing?
You've got China Beach and Stanford.
Suggestion in the background.
China Beach, Stanford, the City Hall, and Union Square complex of San Francisco. Then underneath Fort Point is that massive granite seawall that's accessible from the coast, and you can walk right up to where the water splashes on the wall. Those are those huge blocks just taking the brunt of the ocean.
Collinsville. There's a Collinsville in Alabama.
I don't know Collinsville.
Yeah.
Where is it and what's there?
I've been there in Alabama, but I'm sure there's one in California because they're all the same names. You know, there's the Alabama Hills in California too. I don't know why they would call it that.
These repeating names, they ran out of names apparently.
Right.
Always same over and over. Well, what a nice time. I'm happy to take any questions if people have some quick ones. Otherwise, I'm going to say goodbye and wish everyone the best.
Yes. Again, thanks everybody for being here. And obviously, Kairos, thank you. Had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess with that, we're gonna head out. And
thank you once again. Thank you.
And I'm just going to play this in case you weren't at the beginning. Thanks, everybody.
I did enjoy that. I did enjoy your little video. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yep.
Bye now.
Bye, everybody.